Sweet savior of so many of my projects. I'll absolutely cover my freshly uncovered elemental in a thick layer of goopy clear silicone, then using a finger dipped in isopropyl alcohol, I'll push and press and smoosh the silicone into all the little gaps and holes until I've completely covered the body. I think. I don't actually know if it's covered because this stuff is clear and the shiny metal body underneath is making it damn near impossible to know. Again, there wasn't a whole lot of planning going on here. Eventually, though, I was pretty sure I got the vast majority of the body covered in some sort of something, and I was fairly mildly confident that there was at least somewhat of a swirly and fiery looking finish on it, so all I had left to do was touch up the tips of the hand toes with some extra silicone to make them nice and long and finger-like, and I was just about ready to add some color. And to add said color, I'm going to use some ink since this stuff is nice and transparent, which should allow the clear silicone to retain some of its translucency. I started by giving the entire body a complete once-over with a yellow to lay down the first layer of extra hot base coat before working my way back through with a red to add some variation and give the tips a nice highlight. And thus far, the inks look absolutely terrific, and even with the more opaque red over top, the silicone is starting to look like proper fire. Except, unfortunately, it's so translucent that I can still clearly see the ugly light strip underneath, which is a bummer. Sadly, I ended up repainting everything with some much more opaque acrylic paints in the hopes that I could hide said hideous light strips underneath. And it turned out pretty good, actually. The opaque paints aren't nearly as fun as the clear silicone showing through, but it still looks pretty good, and with the top coat of glossy varnish, I think it'll work a treat. Plus, with it being completely opaque, the light underneath is dispersed much more cleanly, rather than highlighting each individual LED. Of course, it's still not quite what I was imagining, since with the silicone being so hard to work with, I wasn't able to add a face or any finer details. However, I do have an idea. This is Epoxy Sculpt, a two-part self-curing resin clay. All you need to do is take equal parts of container A and container B, then mix them together, and you've essentially got a self-curing ball of clay that you can sculpt with. The self-curing bit is the most important part here, since I don't think there's any chance that I'm going to safely fit this silicone-covered LED strip hot glued to a foam floor in my oven where I normally cure my clay. Instead, I'll use this already raw-colored clay to make an angry little elemental face as well as build up some rocky bits on his chest. The idea here was to make the rock look like little lumps of cooled magma. I'm hoping the face will help to give this otherwise lifeless lump of fiery silicone goo a bit of personality, and the rocks on the chest will just make the face look a little less out of place. Once I've added all the necessary rocky bits, I can reshape them so they're a little less smooth, and I can add some cracks and fissures before cracking out my rocks to add that final rocky surface texture. This particular clay is already pretty rocky looking, so all I need to do is give it a little black wash followed by some light gray dry brushing, and this fiery elemental is already looking decidedly more alive.